All right. Thursday night, college baseball season. JP Priester with me here on the Clemson Baseball Show. No Casey the Beef Cregan tonight. He's traveling. I gave him the week off. I've given him several weeks off of Sluggo. That guy's on like 412 podcasts, I think, and shows and what he's got his chop and beef. He's got the message board geniuses. So anyway, Casey's traveling tonight. Casey, if you are watching or listening, have a good trip, buddy. You deserve some time off. JP Priester, all ClemsonTigers.com. We're going to talk about Clemson baseball for a few minutes, probably a few short minutes, but Tigers got swept by UCF in spectacular fashion, losing the resumption of the Friday night game 4-2. Saturday, they fell behind. They came back. Bullpen gave up a few runs, and then the second game, or the third game, I should say. I'm getting confused because Friday went into Saturday, and there were two games Saturday. Anyway, on Sunday they lost 13-7. Once again, fell behind, came back, just couldn't get over the hump. Had some mistakes that we've seen over the Monty Lee era. There were problems with the starting pitching, problems with the bullpen, base running blunders. More so maybe in the Tuesday game when they lost to USC Upstate. I think I'd mentioned to you, you weren't able to watch that game, but in one inning they had 4 hits, including 2 doubles, and scored 1 run. Now there's a line drive double play, but bad read by the runner on first. He may have been out anyway, but they had another guy. They had second, third, and I think 0 outs, and a ground ball to the left side. And the runner scored from third, but the guy on second was out by about 6 miles going to third base. So anyway, we're seeing a lot of the same issues. It's early in the season, JP, and I promised myself, and I promised you before the season, I didn't know if they're going to be 14-42, 42-14. It's a building process, long way to go, and I think we're seeing that in the first 8 games of the season.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm like you. I didn't know what to expect. I certainly didn't expect, 4-4 after the first 8 games. But I absolutely thought the possibility was there that it could be a growing process. We're talking about year 1 of a new head coach, a lot of bad habits and lack of fundamentals that are bad habits that need to be worked out of this team, and some lack of fundamentals that need to be worked in. And, it's going to be a process, it looks like. And I'm not even sure that we are settled on who's playing where yet. Injuries have played a little bit of a role in that, getting Will Taylor back slowly but surely. Tyler Corbett's been out. There's been some injuries on that pitching staff, so I think maybe they've been relying on a little more heavily on some freshmen than they otherwise would have. But biggest thing is, well, once you get past the pitching, for me, the biggest thing is the lack, and how many times have we talked about this, but the lack of being able to come up with the big hit when you need it. Runners on third, runners on second, less than 2 outs, and you end up stranding them or just scoring 1, and just not being able to produce that, what Monty Lee used to call that crooked inning, and right. Clemson's not been able to do that very often so far this year, leaving a lot of runners on base.
Yeah, they there was a lot of that. Like I said, on the Tuesday game, they had second, third, and nobody out that same inning, and USC Upstate, and second, third, nobody out, and we had a ground ball for 1 out, and that scored a run, and then the line drive ended the inning. And I want to say, that's bad luck, but when it keeps happening to you, and we're not talking for 8 games, we're talking literally like for years, right? And like I said, I guess you could make the argument that it was bad luck. The guy on first got caught, but I mean, it was not close. I mean, he was 2/3 of the way to second. So they're still running out of some innings. They're, the pitchers, I was going to say the pitchers have made 3 errors, and Olenchek had a real costly one, came in, could have gotten out of a huge jam and threw wild down the first base line, which I think we've seen from him before in a previous year, if memory serves, probably not. But so they're making mistakes in the field. Then we had a dive in right field, and the ball got past the right fielder, and they're just not playing well. And we know they have talent, right? We see it. We see it. I don't want to say in the rankings as the team rankings, but the individual rankings. They're good players. You watched them. You saw them practice, right? You saw the pitchers pitch well, but it's not translating to the games. And I also wasn't expecting 4-4 early. I expect some bumps along the way. I said 14-42 just because the alliteration. I really didn't expect 14-42. But I'm starting to wonder. It's early. They've played, what's that, 1/7 of the season. There's plenty of time to go. And fortunately, baseball is one of those games where you can get hot, right? It's not like football where within reason, you pretty much know who's going to win and lose. Baseball, you can get hot, you can go on tears. Coastal Carolina's got a national championship, for example. So all is not lost. I mean, the team is batting 311 and they've gotten 28 stolen bases. So, but there's been 9 errors in 8 games, and 3 of those by the pitchers, as I mentioned. They're not running the base great, besides the stolen bases, which they're doing fine in. This is going to sound coach speak, but they just need to get back to like fundamental baseball, in my opinion.
No, I agree. They definitely have been lacking in some of the fundamental stuff. There's no doubt about that. And to me, though, it kind of it all starts for me with the starting pitching, and it's not been what I thought it was going to be coming in. Ryan Ammons has been great on Friday night. Austin Gordon's been, up and down. He's not been terrible, not been great. He's had his moments, and he's also gotten hit some. Jay Dill's just not getting it done. Let's be real. His fastball just seems a little flat right now. Doesn't have a lot of movement on it. He is consistently pitching from behind in the count. It's taking him a ton of pitches to get through 3 and 4 innings. Maybe he's in a funk. Maybe he's just not quite there yet. But I definitely think that rotation is something that Eric Back is just taking a look at ahead of this weekend series against South Carolina, as evidenced by him saying today, or putting out today, that he's not naming any starting pitchers Friday or Sunday, which, didn't shock me. I thought the fact that Tristan Smith only went 1 inning on Tuesday was very telling. I would fully expect him to get a start this weekend, maybe possibly on Saturday in Greenville, where he just started Tuesday. Maybe there was a reason they let him start there. Outside of that, it's hard to know what's going to happen. Obviously, you've gotten what you need from Ammons on Friday night, but beyond that, it's been hit and miss. Not sure how stretched out Billy Barlow is. We saw him for an inning on Sunday. If you could get him back, that would be great. Not sure it happens before this weekend, but you're also been without Willie Weiss in the back end of that bullpen, and that kind of affects how you do things later on in the later innings, and who you have to rely on and bring in certain spots. And I think we saw them have to rely on a couple of freshmen a little more heavily than they otherwise would have during the weekend.
Yeah, and that didn't work out so well. Not like you said, they're young guys trying to find their way in college baseball. You mentioned the perhaps changing up the starting rotation. Monty Lee, if I remember correctly, he went 4 or 5 weeks last year before he made that move and moved the 2 Knicks out of the starting rotation. It'll be interesting to see if Eric Bakich does that earlier, like as early as this weekend, right? They've only had 2 weekends of play, so you've given them 2 chances. Of course, you're talking about a 56-game season that goes by pretty quick. So I will be neither team had any starting pitchers listed today. I figured Clemson might have 1 or 2 TBAs, but I did not expect that from South Carolina, and I didn't expect all 6, 3 on each side. So I will be interested to see who's the starting pitching or starting pitchers for Clemson this weekend. Now, you mentioned the bullpen, the Willie Weiss at the back end missing, um, and Tristan Smith starting on Tuesday, who got the save, I think, in the first game of the season. So, what do we do at the end of that bullpen? Any ideas?
Fingers crossed, Willie Weiss is back. It sounded like Sunday, Eric Backus sounded like that he was expecting Weiss to be back by this weekend, or he was at least extremely hopeful that he would be. He sounded pretty positive in that regard. So I'm kind of expecting Weiss to be back, but if he's not, maybe Olenchuk's your guy on the back end. That those two strikeouts that Olenchuk got in that game, that second game Saturday,
Right.
that is the Ty Olenchuk I saw during the scrimmages. I mean, he was on point. He was dominant. He was hitting his spots. And, if you get that Ty Olenchuk on the back end, you'll be all right in that regard.
Yeah, he looked really good, and he was so close to getting out of a bases loaded, nobody out jam, and then the floodgates open, which, that's baseball. Wayne Allen checks in and said it's time to beat somebody. Can't think of anyone better than the Shamecocks to get a winning streak going. Agreed 100%. You're not going to hear any argument from us on that. South Carolina, JP, we were kind of talking before the show. We don't know a whole lot about South Carolina. I know they're 9-0, and they haven't really beaten anybody of significance. UMass Lowell 3 times. They beat Winthrop, Queens, and Penn 3 times, and North Carolina A&T, it looks like. So they haven't played a tough schedule. I think Clemson's played a little tougher schedule with just because 3 games against UCF. We didn't even talk about that. What do you think about UCF? Did you see enough of them to form an opinion on? It seemed to me they have some power. We saw that for sure. They have a lot of attitude, which is, that's okay in baseball too. And that's, especially in college baseball, it's a valuable tool. But I mean, obviously we should be concerned because they swept Clemson in Clemson. But I mean, is that going to turn out to be a good team, you think? Like a regional team, maybe?
Possibly. I mean, I thought that was a pretty good baseball team.
Okay.
They didn't have the pitching isn't great, but it's good. It's solid. Speaking of fundamentals, they were very fundamentally sound. They do all the little things necessary to win baseball games. They don't make mistakes. And to me, most importantly, they take advantage of the mistakes you make. And every time Clemson made a mistake, UCF made them pay. And to me, that is the makeup of a pretty good baseball team. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see them playing in a regional somewhere once we get further along, when we get to that point in the season. But, yeah, I did think that was a pretty good baseball team. Mouthy, cocky, confident, but very good too. I'm not sure how much pitching they have, but the rest of the makeup of that team, I really like it.
Well, it was interesting what you said. They took advantage because even in that the game when Olenchuk made the bad throw, the runner scored. There were still 2 outs and 1 guy on, and they piled on. Right? They didn't end it there. They added more runs. I don't remember how many, but they added more runs. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Let's see.
Olenchuk threw a wild pitch, and then they ended up getting another double, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they just make you. When Clemson made mistakes throughout the entire weekend, UCF made them pay.
Alan checks in and says, just an opinion. I feel the pitchers need to simply quit trying to be so fine, picking at the corners with the hitters and start challenging the hitters early in the count. Let the D work for you. That is something that happened, if I'm not mistaken, under the previous pitching coach, right? They as I mentioned, I think in the preseason, what they did under the last regime was they were incredible in that first weekend of the season when they played a team that wasn't as good as them. They were like striking out 32 and walking 4. I'm talking about the previous under Monty Lee's Coach C, I think his name was Andrew C. They were good then, but when they played the better teams, they, of course, didn't have the same numbers, but it wasn't even in the same ballpark. And that's what we saw, right? That first weekend, the pitchers look dominant, and then they play somebody that's better, and they don't do they. I'm not expecting them to have the same numbers as they did against Siena, but somewhere in the ballpark, competitive. I didn't see it. They looked scared, as Alan says. They looked like they couldn't throw a strike. Olenchuk, as you said, threw a wild pitch with the man on third. There were plenty of those over the weekend too.
8.
Yeah, yeah. It just
It was 8 hit batsmen.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's another sign you're not throwing the ball over the plate. Obviously, it just piled on, and there, as you mentioned, a lot of them are young guys, so there's going to be some growing pains, and we know that. And I don't want to pile on them. We still got 48 games to go. So South Carolina, though, was talking about their weak schedule, but they're batting 322. JP, they played 9 games. They got 27 home runs.
Yeah, you listen to Eric Backus talk about them the other night, and he used the word power to describe them. Power arms, power bats, and I think that's applicable here. They have guys that throw extremely hard. They got guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. I would be a little bit surprised if their rotation isn't the same as what we've seen, those same 3 guys. And maybe if it might be switched up in a different order, I don't know. But those 3 guys have been very good to start the season. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but they have been. Their pitching has been, especially their starting pitching, has been strong. So I mean,
maybe there's a little gamesmanship on their side by not naming their pitchers either.
Somebody told me that Mark Kingston did say it in one of his press conferences. Okay. I don't know though. I haven't watched Kingston's press conference. I watched Monty's, but I haven't watched Mark Kingston's. So I can't say for sure that he did.
Looks like they've got James Hicks has 2 starts. Noah Hall has 2 starts, and Will Sanders, of course, has 2 starts. And
Hall and Sanders are the 2. Those are 2 really good pitchers.
Yeah, 0.68 ERA for Hall and 2.00 for Sanders, and that's the team has a 2.00 ERA. And again, haven't played the best competition, but they've crushed the competition that they've played, which is more than you can certainly say for Clemson so far. Yeah. You already told me pre-show you're headed up to Clemson tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be headed up tomorrow. I'll be in Greenville Saturday. Still debating on about Columbia Sunday. We'll see.
I have to see how the first 2 games go.
Yeah, I got football Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So if I go to Columbia, I got to go right back to Clemson after. So I just might stay and watch on TV Sunday. I don't know. It'll depend on what I feel like Sunday when I wake up.
That makes perfect sense. All right, JP, as we said, without Casey here, it'd be a little bit shorter show tonight. But I appreciate you spending 15, 20 minutes with me talking about Clemson baseball. You can find JP's work at allclemsontigers.com. You got your own show on your Facebook page on Monday, I believe it is, or is it on the All Clemson Tigers?
I do a little live thing every Monday night, 7:00. It's on the All Clemson YouTube page. We talk football, baseball, basketball. It's mostly just a Q&A thing. So try to answer every question best I can. If that's something that interests you, tune on in.
Tune on in at the allclemsontigers.com Facebook page. And JP, last thing before I let you go, I noticed your sunglasses are working again.
I think I found a new pair.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, JP. Have a good evening.
All right, man. Thanks, Marty.